I've got a surprise for you tonight. We had a guest lined up throughout the week who could not make it, and one of our guests that was on before, one of our dedicated listeners and followers and supporters, was out there, and I reached out to her. We had such a great interview the last time she was here. I reached out to her just minutes ago and asked her if she would be interested in coming back on and talking about different things. She loves everything Fringe, without a doubt. And we'll talk about ufology and paranormal stuff and music and everything. And that's Carle. Her bio reads, she's the oldest daughter of Walter R. Carle and Louise Carle. Carol's birthday was actually announced in The Hollywood Reporter, as her father was then a news director and television news broadcaster in that city. Her mother sang live on the radio and was also a disc jockey back in the day. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, where the family moved, she was a child. Carole began doing musical theater in high school, and community theater followed. Eventually, the family moved back to L.A., where Carole found professional work and joined Actors Equity Association, the Stage Actors Union, and the Screen Actors Guild. Her career highlights include performing with the national company on A Clear Day, You Can See Forever, opposite John Ratt, Howard Keel, and understudy to Tammy Grimes. She starred in a film with Utah's own Robert Redford, a much younger Robert Redford, in the movie called Downhill Racer that was put out by Paramount Pictures. Other credits are movies with the legendary actor Leonard Nimoy, Mission Impossible Season 5, Episode 1, The Killer. Without any further delay, let's go ahead and get her on the phone. Carole, good evening. As always, welcome to Fringe Radio NK Talk.
Hello, Pat. What an amazing evening.
Yeah, well, thank you for jumping on board.
Well, hold me back and get the hook, as they used to say in vaudeville. Well, and it's so funny. The way this works, the minute I heard you say, well, we had planned a guest for the second 2 hours, and the guest didn't, and what I thought was, well, you could always call me, Pat. I'm serious as I stand here. That is exactly what and it was kind of like, and then, of course, and then, to top it all off, it was March 17th, a year ago, that I did the show, that I did Fringe with you guys.
Yes, it was. It was.
Yeah. So, it's all fraught. It's as they say, heavy. Yeah. So, well, where do you want to start?
Time goes so quick. Well, how about for the people that didn't tune in last time? How about you give us? I just scathed over your bio. I just skated over the top of it.
Hey, listen, that's all it deserves. Okay,
No.
Okay.
And why don't you give our audience here that don't know who you are? Why don't you give us a little bit of background?
Well, I started in community theater in Grand Rapids. I guess that's what leads me to actually be on the phone with you at this very minute, and that led the family, we had decamped to Michigan. It's a long story. Legend has it that it was the tail end of the post-McCarthy, and it involved my father and some sort of a court, not, McCarthy hearings per se, but some sort of a court-related testimony against his boss. In the direction of news management. My father was a news broadcaster and at that point director of news for a prominent Los Angeles radio station at that point, back and forth from radio to TV. Mm-hmm. And after that, he just sort of, we moved to Michigan. My mother had lived there briefly as a child, and my father had relatives there, and he just never went back into the business. Years later, when we moved back out here, he sold ultimately radio airtime, advertising airtime, for some smaller stations in the Inland Empire. But yeah, it's one of those who knows, and they're gone now, and so the nitty-gritty is also, of course, gone. But, anyway, as I said, I warned you, this was going to be a ramble, Pat. So you're
No, I've got good questions for you.
Direct me and, put up these little blocks and say, okay, we just don't want to, treat people to a head in the pinball machine experience.
No, we won't. We'll have some fun. We'll have some fun.
All right, okay.
But that's so did your dad, let me ask you this, did your dad's career, that inspire you to move into acting and doing what you did?
I'm pretty sure it did, and the acting part, the broadcasting, of course, this is, just very, very recent, and since, thank you, Inception Radio Network and Joe Champion, but the broadcasting part, only since last summer, but the theater, since my dad was doing this news broadcasting to the camera, and he was a groundbreaker because instead of, and this was pre-teleprompter, and this was when I was, under 3, there was a situation where what you'd see as you watched early television news was the top of the head of the broadcaster and the bridge of the nose, and after a while, and the microphone, and that gets a little boring. They'd put up some, black and white graphics, and but really very static. And my father decided that he would, and he had an incredible memory to begin with, which facilitated that. He would memorize the news so he could look directly into the camera and not have to look down at the copy in his hands, because, and later came the teleprompter, which at first was these poor guys, with knee pads on the floor holding up cards.
Big
right?
cue cards.
Yeah, cue cards, yes, and they were called idiots at one point, which was, and then, of course, we made it a little more polite and called it teleprompters, and, it's ultimately, of course, all mechanized and computerized, but so that's what my dad did. And so when you see that as a little child, I think, when you see your father's face on the television screen, that's got to have some sort of impact. In other words, I think it's kind of like, hey, this is possible, people do this. And then in the studio, from right next to where he did the broadcast, I was treated, and later treated to nightmares as a result. I saw Macbeth. And it was the 3 witches, and the stirring the pot and the, bubble, toil, and,
Right.
And it was just, so the acting part could very well have, been some sort of, incredible trauma as a result. I was marked. Okay, I was marked for life. But, no, so, I think there's definitely a connection. And my mother, of course, had done little theater, community theater, before I was born, and put that all away, and stayed at home and became a stay-at-home mom when there was really very little other option. But she later became PTA president and that kind of thing. So
you had a good foundation.
Indeed,
Yeah.
and exactly. And
well, let's we'll go all over the place here tonight.
Sure,
but I am looking at some notes from over a year ago, and we'll hit on a few things. Tell us now, what are you doing for? Of course, for those who don't know what Inception Radio, they should, because we've been a part of Inception for over 3 years now.
Wow.
Of course, that is an internet radio station that really caters to the fringy type of things: cryptozoology, paranormal, ufology being the biggest part. Of course, we just lost, sadly, Jerry Pippin,
yes,
longtime broadcaster, groundbreaker in the ufology reporting field. I mean, way before the days of Art Bell.
Oh, yes.
You look at Jerry, and he was doing it a long, long time ago, and without a doubt saw the greatness and the effectiveness of internet radio, and was one of the internet radio pioneers.
Right, that's what I was going to say. A pioneer, and also a pioneer in the subject of ufology, in treating it seriously, in giving, overused word, gravitas, but he brought gravitas to the subject. And while still, of course, I was going to say, and it's redundant, maintaining a sense of humor, because the most recent thing I learned about Jerry Bertrand Pippin, was that he wanted to do stand-up, and at some point early in his career did stand-up comedy.
Yeah. I didn't know. That I did not know.
Yeah, and also, I guess, studied acting at some point at none other than the Pasadena Playhouse.
Wow. Yeah, he was on all over the place. I mean, he was on quite a few different stations, and kind of looking back through his history in his early days of broadcasting, started touching on this the subject, kind of like Lee Spiegel. I never realized how far back Lee Spiegel was hitting on these subjects. Again, we always think of, when we think about, spooky stuff in the middle of the night, above and beyond the horror genre, we think about Art Bell.
Yes, of course. Oh my gosh.
Sure. But there were guys that were out there doing it long before Art even came along. I think Art was just one of the first guys to get out there and capitalize on it and really bring it to mainstream media.
When Art had, are you kidding? He has. Oh my gosh, through the roof the man has, still to this very, and in fact I guess should we address the rumors that he's coming back yet again?
Yeah, I saw he put up a new banner or something.
Yeah, okay, so it's that. Okay, so it's more than a rumor, and I guess that it's summer. I think that's the projected time, and it's going to be amazing. But I think Art Bell, as far as I'm concerned, what he brought to the table or to the microphone was this wonderful mysterioso, this sense of and I remember at one point he was using the tagline, what we do needs the night, which is just, oh my gosh, and out of the desert and all this wonderful stuff. So he pretty much nailed that and brought that label to it. But what Jerry had was this incredible, was it Oklahoma? I think an Oklahoma dialect. So he gave this Americana, almost, a Will Allen kind of a flavor to it, and it is our roots. Ufology is a really an American thing when you think about it.
Oh, it is. His new program, at least on his social media, his new show, while he hasn't announced where it's going to be yet, is called Midnight in the Desert.
Yes, we're talking. I kind of waxed back into the Jerry talk there, but yes, Art Bell, yes, exactly, and it's the Crystal Gayle song Midnight in the Desert. And I know all this through that wonderful thing, Facebook, which is kind of like this little inside corridor. And, honestly, when so many thousand people, know it, I mean, how much inside is it? But it's still, it's kind of cool.
Oh, it is cool. And I'm glad to see. I know there was all different rumors about the Sirius thing. And, I mean, there was so many different things out there. But I'm just glad to see, People ask me, they say, well, just like with any, whether you're an internet broadcaster, a podcaster, or a terrestrial radio host, I don't look at guys like Art as competition. I really don't. I think that we need to get more and more of this information out there. I think, while I may not totally agree all the time, I believe what George Norrie is doing every night is needed, and so many other people, Jimmy Church, and a lot of these other guys that are out there, Dave Schrader, and myself, pretty small potatoes in our market here and where we're at, but it's about getting the word out and letting people make up their own mind and make their own decisions.
Well, yes, getting the word out, and it's sort of the number count. It's kind of like if the commonality takes away the, wow, this is weird, this is different. You mean, oh, you're interested in that? Cue spooky music, and it's kind of like, Heidi Hollis has this wonderful paranormal pledge, that if you had an experience and you can't explain it to yourself and you don't know any, real world consensual reality explanation for it, tell somebody, go to her site and sign this thing that you will take the paranormal pledge to tell someone. In other words, to, I don't know, take this horrible, the onus of if you think this and if you're interested in this and if you know something about this, then you're just weird. And I mean, in other words, to mainstream it. And I know it sounds like we ought to be beyond that, but I don't know. I keep bumping into people who will do the eye roll or, the recoil when the subject comes up. So, yeah.
Well, and then, you can address and I've had the same thing too. And it depends on, I think it really depends on, Carole, who you're addressing and who you're talking with. If you're going to get, to me, as I've said many times before, I don't want to tangle with the debunkers. There's plenty of them out there. I don't want to tangle with those people because I think it's a waste of airtime. It's a waste of breath. There's some people that can't make up their mind. There's other people that think it's funny. And of course, my standard answer is, hey, it's a little bit. It's no different than the WWE. It's galactic entertainment at its best, and you can take it for what it's worth. And then there are people that do appreciate what we do. So now, are you doing a show on Inception? I know you do. Why don't you talk about Inception?
Well, I will talk about the wonderful thing of that I am doing, absolutely, rain or shine, whether they land or whether they take me in the night. Now, this has not happened, but it's a good plot. I do the UFO headline news for Inception Radio Network, and it's broadcast 3 times a day. And we have been doing a series of really before I get into the series and that we're just about to finish up, I'll talk about the news, which is it's really interesting how many stories are showing up, and part of it's my Yahoo and cookies, and where I get a lot of services where I find these stories that I report on for the UFO headline news. A lot of it's cookies, and so they will give me these things. But besides that, there just undeniably is so much going on in the United States space program at the moment that it's just, I mean, I know it's mostly that I'm paying attention more, but it's just, the progress is astonishing. Certainly there's nothing as sensational sounding as, the space elevator. We're not, but the stuff that SpaceX is doing, and Virgin Galactic, and it's just the fact that we're having the fact that, the Ceres, the Dawn probe is up there close to Ceres, all the space news, from here on Earth taking off and stuff we already have up there that's sending stuff back. It's extraordinary, and it seems to have, I don't know, it seems to have made this quantum leap, shall we say, pun intended.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing that I've kind of been, I've sort of had to do the homework on this, and so that's really neat. And then we've been doing a series of interviews with Jesse Marcel, the third, who is the grandson of Jesse Marcel of Roswell fame. And Jesse has, among other things, going an Indiegogo campaign for his Typhoon F1. This is his personal airborne vehicle. I mean, yes, this is a flying car. It is indeed. And if you go to Inception Radio Network and click on, under the forum, click on UFO Headline News, you can find a way. It's archived in the podcast. And you can hear him talking about this. This is going to take us from as high as just over the power lines to, if we want to, be in traffic and go up a foot, and then in increments go as high as, yes, we can, go up and over the cars that we are stuck behind. And this is so, you can fund it, you can help fund this amazing, monumental thing with his Indiegogo campaign. But what's incredible is the fact that he is who he is, that he has this monumental legend behind him, this incredible Roswell stuff. And of course, oh yeah, haha, wouldn't that be funny if of the machine, it was leaked to him by Roswell Information through his his grandfather. But no, of course that's not it. But the fact that he grew up with a nurturing atmosphere of acceptability and science with his parents. And he and his brother would do experiments in the garage, and it was just, the entire thing couldn't have been better as far as nurturing somebody to now bring us something that, wouldn't that be terrific to be able to get off road?
Oh, it would. Well, and there's been a few aero cars that are, I mean, they're pretty pricey, but I think that it was a pipe dream not that many years ago. And, I mean, there are vehicles out there that do work. They do fly. It's now being able to get them into the public's hands. And, of course, all the legalities and regulations that are going to, have to follow.
Right. And of course, this is all kind of, it's not at all the same, but it is sort of in tandem in a weird way with the FAA drone regulations and everything that's going on right now. I mean, something's going to have to be done. Where was it that there was a close call the other day?
I don't. Well, I know there was a Russian drone or something. I was reading some articles about. They've got some jet powered type drones that can be over our soil fairly quick. But I know Amazon was really with their Amazon Prime delivery. If you were within range, they were really looking forward to be cutting edge and use it. But I think some of that's getting shut down.
Yeah, I was having a hard time seeing, just anything. I was seeing it end very badly. That's kind of what was going on. But no, I wish I'd paid a little bit more attention, of course, now. This was mainstream news. It could have been CNN, but it was some kind of a close call. It was a passenger plane and a rather large drone. And they were, the story was really kind of highlighting how something has to be done. Legislation has to be, put in place. And the thing is about the flying car, it's going to be so much larger and so much more noticeable. And it just has if you go to the website, you can see that there's a lot more heft to it. There's no way you can see some of the drones, at least from the way I look at the photographs, at the right angles, depending on your perspective, you're just going to see lines. You won't see bulk. And I just, with the Typhoon F1, and the F stands for freedom, you won't see it that way. You will see a car, probably a bright colored car.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. I surely always wanted to get Jesse Marcel on the show, but unfortunately he left us last year.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did indeed.
So much to offer.
Yeah, amazing person, just amazing, and it's just he went above and beyond. When you think about it, it's just occurring to me, he did an extra stint. Now, once again, I'm hazy, but was he a flight surgeon? Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes.
He went back, for the military. Obviously not called up, and he was sort of over the age where this would have been, the usual thing to happen. And, when I try to put that together with the information I recently stumbled upon, it could be apocryphal, but I've talked to more than one person who, ought to be a good source, that this is a fact, that the military at one point tried to maintain that that his father at Roswell, that his father never was at Roswell, that he had no military connections at all. And in spite of this, in spite of how they attempted to malign his father, he serves his country yet again above and beyond, which just speaks volumes.
Well, and I think, Carole, where that comes from is that's about total respect and honor of your country, and not some human being with a bar or a star on their shirt. It's about doing the right thing.
Right.
Which get away from the politics and do the right thing. Just as we've had so many guests on, when you start talking about the religious aspects of things, and I don't want to digress too much, but to me, in talking about ufology and ET and paranormal stuff and what have you and afterlife, my own opinion, it's not about that building that you go and attend on every Sunday. That's just a piece of it. It's about doing the right thing, and whether it's you take it from a religious standpoint or from a moral standpoint or from a military standpoint, and I think it's a class act.
Right, and indeed, and just to tag on to that wonderful stuff you were just saying, it's that what's in your heart when that person leaves the room.
Exactly.
What's going on there? What's the inner dialogue, if you will? And when there's nothing to lose, no win or loss. There's no competition in the dialogue. There's nobody has an agenda. What's in your heart? At the end of the day, which I know that's a phrase that I like that you use. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to be able to look in the mirror at the end of the day.
That's right.
And be happy with yourself. Well, that's really cool. I'll have to listen a little bit more. I have to be honest with you. I love everything ufology. I really do. There is just so much of it. I try to, as I mentioned, I don't consider anybody any kind of competition. I consider everybody a contributor. And I go listen to other interviews by other hosts, just to hear things. But there's just so much of it out there. So many different, internet radio stations and regular radio stations and television programs. But I'll have to make it a point more to tune in there and get the local news. I know I get a lot of my friend Erica Lukes, who is the MUFON director here in Utah, is always sending me stuff. And if she's listening, I hope she's doing better. I know she had surgery. And I'll plug for them. There's a big UFO event going to take place. We need to get those people here in the studio in Cedar City, I believe it is, in August. Stanton Friedman's coming. Quite a few different people are going to be in town for the first annual UFO event, and Travis Walton will be there.
Oh my gosh, that's a biggie.
Yeah, there's quite a few. Richard Dolan will be there. There's quite a few big names that will be in town for that, and we'll keep people more abreast as it comes together.
Wow, exciting times.
I know.
This is amazing. Yeah, that's That would be an interesting thing to study if somebody's collecting numbers for attendance for all of the conferences. I wonder, is it up? Is it down? Is it sideways? I've never really seen.
I'm going to say it's down.
Really?
We've well, you're always listening, but we've had Sam Moranto on. Who
yes, right.
Sam is the or was, or I believe still is, somehow associated with MUFON Illinois, and I know Sam puts together some excellent events, and he actually last year canceled one or two of them in Chicago because of lack of attendance, of lack of pre-ticket sales. They're just didn't even move the needle on some events that he had for many years.
I wonder what that is. Is that an economic indicator, or what?
I think, I don't. I mean, like you said, you follow social media. It seems like last year, especially, there was more cons out there. There was more paranormal events out there. It seemed like every week there was something going on, and I think after a while, people, they hit the gamut. They see the different people, and how many times can you go dump that? Because some of those are quite expensive to get into. I really think I think it was a little inundated. I think there was just a little too much last year.
Yeah,
what I noticed.
Okay, so just a kind of a case of overexposure.
Yeah.
And how many times do you, and especially if you're coming from out of town, it's a hotel, you could be anywhere. It's a convention center, you could be anywhere. And it's perhaps a lecturer who is coming with the same material that you heard 3 weeks ago. So,
right.
Yeah.
As much as I would love to go hear Stanton Friedman, I will make it down to the Utah one. Because it's close enough that you can stay down there, or even worst case scenario would be a 2.5 hour drive each way. But no more than an LA commute to work.
Right, exactly. I'm not sure what your point is there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, coming from Chicago, people go 2.5 hours. It's like, that's a Friday afternoon getting home.
Yeah, really.
But again, how many times can you hear the same people talk over and over and give the same talk over and over? But yeah, for what it's worth, I think last year the market got saturated all over the place, and I've noticed this year there's not quite as many events, and maybe it needs to take a little bit of a break, but I think what drives these events is more real-world events, that people can see, and that kind of brings the interest back again. Right,
and of course there's this thing that's going to happen in Mexico City in May. The revelation, the big reveal of the 2 slides of aliens.
Right.
And, this is in the hands now of Tom Carey and Don Schmidt.
Right.
And it's got a real interesting provenance. From whence it came is apparently belonged to these two slides. They're Kodak slides, and they are Kodachrome, and I've seen, just as everyone else has, I certainly have no privileged information, but I've seen the photos online, various sites, and you can see, if you're familiar with slides, it's got the red block print that says Kodachrome on top. Maybe it says it on the bottom too, and in the middle is the cell, the whatever you call it, the slide.
Right.
And apparently that has been authenticated by Eastman Kodak in Rochester, New York, as 1947 film stock. Now, I guess the slides came from the belongings of a couple from, help me out here, was it Oklahoma, was it Texas? I believe he was a geologist for an oil company, and she was, I'm not sure exactly what her capacity was, but she had a pilot's license, and I'm pretty sure she was somebody who flew a lot. Okay. Whether she was a geologist, I really don't know. But apparently the slides were in their belongings, and when they died, tinkers to Evers to chance, I don't know how they ended up somehow and got into the belongings now there in the custody, shall we say, or I don't know, maybe they're in a secured, undisclosed location, somehow under the caretaking of Tom Carey and Don Schmidt. The stock apparently has been authenticated, and it is 1947. Now, somebody as wonderful, and boy, do I want to believe. By the way, in case somebody has not heard the story, the photos, the subjects in the slides, the subject is a gray alien, the stereotypical gray alien, on what appears to be a gurney or some sort of a table. It looks as though an autopsy has been going on, and I believe this is in a glass case. And then, of course, there's one that's a close-up.
Our guest tonight, Carole. Carole, thank you for stepping up when I asked you to come on. It's fun to revisit, like you said, almost a year to the date.
Yeah, it was the 17th, and I remember making a joke that, St. Patrick's Day and your Pat. Yeah,
Yep. Matter of fact, I was listening to that show that we did. Carole was here.
Yes, of course.
And hopefully we will get her back soon.
Oh, that will be the day. Oh,
Looking
my gosh, we will just stand up and cheer.
Looking forward to it. She's going to come back, though, with a totally different attitude on certain subjects.
Wow.
So I feel sorry for the poor person that encounters her the first time around.
Oh, so she is ready to speak the courage of her convictions, yes?
Yes, she is. We got a caller. You want to take a call?
Oh, my gosh, of course.
Caller, good evening. Welcome to K-Talk. Oh, okay.
Oh, we lost them. Oh, no.
Maybe it was that alien. What's that little alien, the Jobo or whatever his name is?
Oh, J-Rod.
J-Rod, that was
the one who likes strawberry ice cream.
That might have been him.
Gosh, we could have talked about strawberry ice cream.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, that sounds good right about now.
Yeah.
So we were talking before the commercial break about the Tom Carey, Don Schmidt.
Yes, right.
Slide.
Yeah, and these slides they're now, they belong to these guys. They were for a while in the belonging or in the caretaking. I do not know the legal part of this. I have no idea who actually, whether the attic contents were willed to some specific individual, and then of course there was. But at any rate, these are going to be revealed to the public in Mexico City in May. I don't think there's a specific date on that, but this is all under the umbrella of the fellow named Jaime Maussan. Mm-hmm. You must know his name?
Yes, I do.
Yes, and from Mexico. Whether he's technically connected, do you know, Pat, whether he's technically connected to MUFON?
I don't, and if you listen to I've reached out to interview Jaime a few times. I know Erica Luke's here in town, mm-hmm. who is, again, the MUFON director for Utah, has talked with him on several occasions. I know that Lee and Ben had some comments last week when they were on. I don't know. I
right.
So.
I was gonna. You know what? I'm just not gonna go there. I know very little about that, and why dig into that when it's cheesy, it's easy, and I'm not gonna do it.
Right. So I would assume that Jaime is, without a doubt, he has been credited. He's got a lot of credit to his name about bringing out cases. I saw a couple programs with him on where he actually debunked some hoax cases that would have fooled the average individual.
Yes, he's nobody's fool, and he's not. It's not. He's not somebody who's gullible, and it's not going to make you sit there at home and say, "How can you believe that man?" So,
right.
Yeah.
So no, I guess he is going to divulge this stuff. But it's interesting because the film that if you watch, of course we've had John on the show. If you watch John B. Wells' show, if you watch Midnight to Caravan, and some of these are Caravan to Midnight.
Right.
Sorry, John. He's going to do some voiceover stuff for me, so I got to be on his good side.
Oh, cool. Yes, you don't want to mess with that guy,
right.
no.
And we're also working to get his program here on K-Talk on Sunday nights. So that'll be good. John's without a doubt nice guy. But the program, like his Unsealed Alien Files that he's involved with, a lot of these other ones, they always show that alien autopsy. Now, that alien autopsy film, I get really confused in that because there are some people that say the guy that created the Max Headroom character is the guy that put that whole thing together. And then there's some people that say, well, they don't know where it came from. It looks really real when you watch it. I mean, it's pretty, it's pretty, it's somewhat grotesque in a way. But then there's some little things like Ben Hansen mentioned about the types of rubber gloves. Well, they didn't use those type of gloves back then; they weren't even invented. So it's hard to say. I hope we don't see a slide from that, because that film tends to get a lot of credibility in a lot of arenas.
I know, and I just, once again, this is me. I want to believe, but so what I'm saying is, here's how it runs for me. Here's how I sort of cut and paste that, and I know this is bad forensics, but it's sort of, I don't know. It goes like this, Pat. I had such an unbelievable feeling, gut level feeling. As I watched this, and fortunately, I think my children were young, and it was television, and I was watching this by myself, and I found myself kind of, choking back a sob, not out of any kind of a ooh, yuck, but out of I found it gut-wrenching. I found it like watching an autopsy on not just a human with any kind of yuck factor, but on oh my gosh, this was a living creature. And it reached me, and then of course then the self-censoring starts in and the self-editing, and well, really, Carole, how could you fall for that? It's a rubber blah blah blah, and I don't know where I finally came down on it. I put it away. I kind of it's like. At one point, and honestly, this was, talk about, mixed emotions, conflicted emotions, because I was ready to say, this does it for me. I absolutely now completely convinced not only was Roswell real, but this is one of the dudes. Okay, and at the same time, I'm thinking, I'm being played with here. This is, this is fast and loose time, and this is not. And so now, I guess where it lies is who would it behoove to have us think that this was real? Who would, and it's kind of, I'll tell you, there's something that's been running through my mind lately. It's that thing that you say, I don't know if somebody frequents a bar or a restaurant, or if you hang out with a group of the same people over and over again, like actors, rehearsal, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like somebody will say, okay, what are we ordering tonight? What are we drinking tonight? Well, I've got things like, what are we believing tonight? Okay,
right.
Where does it come down? How far, if you will forgive me, how far down the rabbit hole are we going to take this? Where does this, where are the twists and turns? And And I honestly do believe that Roswell was real, and it wasn't a weather balloon, and it wasn't any kind of crash dummies, which, by the way, speaking of rubber gloves and anachronisms, we didn't, crash dummies were not, apparently, had not made the scene at this point, so we can scratch that one.
No,
but
well,
but no, go ahead.
You want to, I mean, you just, again, you want to believe, you don't want to be hoaxed, you don't want wishful thinking. I don't think anybody else does. But I just I hope that there's enough. We've talked about it so many times on the program with different guests. There's so much hoaxing on YouTube and in photos and stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, man, you just don't want to waste a bunch of time. But it'll be interesting. I guess we'll have to wait and see what Jaime shows and what it looks like, and either it's going to be like, wow, that's cool, or because on YouTube the J-Rod, have you ever seen the supposedly the I don't know if it's him or if it's something else. I believe it's a Russian-made film where it looks like J-Rod in a black and white film being interrogated.
I think I have seated at a table, and it's mostly kind of what we would call a headshot from just the top of the chest to the top of the head, right? Yeah, and so I've seen that, and I don't know, because see, that's like, it's at some point it becomes, it's clickbait, and at some point I just have to turn away from this stuff, because I don't have the baseline education, equipment, expertise to give any credence one way or the other to something that could be completely 100% CGI, and I can't do it. And so since I can't, I kind of I don't want to see it. Now, if it's something where there are thousands of people standing out who they're not part of the hoax, are they being hoaxed? And you still can't answer that question, but I want to see that,
Right.
And it's just, I guess, the mass sightings are sometimes the more amazing, the most amazing, because it's kind of like, this is not one individual who, could have had something in her eye in the middle of the night, right? And, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. I just, again, I think that this last year in 2014, there was a lot of sightings, a lot of things, a lot of good videos, a lot of good stuff was shot. And again, all that we can do, all that you can do, is just keep presenting that over and over and over. And again, I still, to my knowledge, I've never really, in the interviews I've had with different ufologists, I asked them, do you have that picture that you are 1,000% sure is real? And I think they'll all tell you the same thing. Yeah, I do, but I don't know. Until you see the thing, you go up and touch it or whatever. It's a tough one.
Well, like your sighting, that's an extremely convincing thing for me, because I have a hugely strong sense of, as I'm sure all our listeners do too, who you are and how why would you, I know it's like, don't waste your breath with why would somebody hoax something, but why would you give a false account of seeing something from a hot tub? Oh gosh, you should run that past everybody again in case they haven't heard it.
Oh, my sighting?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, my sighting took place back in. All right, I'll set the stage a little bit.
That's a goodie. Oh, do it. Really good.
It's a goodie. I actually, when I moved here from Chicago, always wanted a hot tub, and hey, that was part of the deal. When you move to Salt Lake City, you go skiing and you have to have a hot tub. Well,
absolutely.
I don't ski, but anyway, bought this hot tub. And I was just, it was delivered. I wish I had more details about the date and stuff. It was actually delivered on a Thursday in the morning. And I remember when the guys got it all set up, they hooked it up. They said, I said, if I fill it now, will it be warm by tonight to jump in? And the guy was like, yeah, but it's going to probably be late. It's going to take several hours. So I got it filled, turned the heaters on, the pumps on, got the thing circulating. I thought about dumping buckets of boiling water in. Anyway, long story short, it was really my first time in to this thing.
Wow.
And it was out there, and it was about 102, 103 degrees. And it was in October or November. I don't honestly remember. But I'd have to look at the bill of sale. But anyway,
so in other words, like the trees didn't have all their leaves. Maybe there were some gone at that point.
Yeah, there was still some on. It was kind of fallish. It was cool.
Okay.
And it was around 1:30 in the morning. I had to go to work the next day, so there was no having a beer or a glass of wine or anything like that. I was actually out there long enough where my fingers were getting pretty pruny, and I'm like, all right, I gotta button this up and get to bed.
Right.
And as I was getting up to get out, I saw this craft that flew from the south end of the valley. It was coming across the south. It was coming over the Oquirrh Mountain Range. Of course, here in Salt Lake, we've got the Wasatch Mountains, which we always, you laugh about the Wasatch Front.
You remember? Yes, I love it. It sounds so poetic.
It does. In the Wasatch Mountains on the east side of the Salt Lake Valley, that is the hind end of the Rockies. That's where the Rockies stop. That's the end of the Rocky Mountain chain. That's where they terminate on the west.
Wow.
Then we have the Salt Lake Valley, and then we have the Oquirrh Mountains on the other side. Now the Oquirrhs are the peaks here. We've got a couple beautiful peaks in the Rockies on the Wasatch Front. I'd say somewhere around 14,000 feet. The Oquirrhs, I think the highest peak is around 9,300 feet, but still substantial.
Well, I'm glad I pronounced that right the other day. I had to read that in a UFO headline news story. There was something seen over the Oquirrh Mountains, so I just kind of said I thought that's how, and I was right. All right, so come on.
So anyway, as I stood up to get out, I saw this craft that was coming from the south, going to the north, and I didn't realize, it was hard to determine initially how big it was, but I could tell it was ginormous is the only word I can use.
Oh my God.
I watched it. Now my home was in the way, so I actually had to run out the gate and get onto the driveway. And I remember standing out there. It was cold enough that, my swimsuit was soaking wet. You know how it is when you get out of a hot tub.
Yeah.
And I watched this thing just go across the top of the Ochre Mountains, probably maybe 1,000 foot, maybe less than that, above the top of the Western Mountains. And as I stated many times, I really and truly, my biggest fear was not that this thing was going to fire laser beams or anything like
Right,
that,
right.
but that Salt Lake City International Airport's right up there, and there's aircraft in the air, and they're going to hit it because it was so huge. But it moved when I sat back and did all my calculations. Basically, just started drawing on construction paper, on scratch paper.
Right.
Here's where I am. Here's relative where this thing was. Here's the, here's how long it took to get from here to there approximately, even
Right.
to the point of weeks later going in my backyard and walking out to the front of the house and timing it and stuff like that. And then saw the thing, veer off to the northwest and take off. And like I said, the only thing that was very strange about it is it was dead quiet. But even though we were, I would say 15, well, not quite 15, but a good 8 to 10 miles away, you could feel the air displacement. You could feel the rush of air as it displaced.
Right. That's what sticks in my mind from your description. That is a real. That's just. Now try to explain. You can't. I'm not really. Wouldn't it be great if you could just stand here and say, "Well, that was a." But how do you explain air displacement and a physiological sensation from an optical illusion? Okay.
Right.
No.
Right. And it was a dead calm night. And it was like a wave of air that came, and it was just dead calm. We've got to take an NBC News break. Can we keep you for another go-around?
Well, twist my arm.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
We've got Carle with us here tonight, returning a year later, and we're having fun talking about different things.